Hello and welcome to this week's weekly wind-up with me, Helen Ashcroft. Coming up on today's show, we will be discussing female genital mutilation, or FGM, and volunteers in libraries. And as normal, we will be having two guests that'll help discuss these topics for the show. The first guest is Justine Radbone from the Women Speak Out project. Hello. And the second guest is actually a friend of mine. It's Bridget Crabtree. Okay then, so the NHS choices state that female genital mutilation, sometimes referred to as female circumcision, refers to procedures that intentionally alter or cause injury to the female genital organs, and this is for non-medical reasons. The practice is illegal in the UK. It has been estimated that over 20,000 girls under the age of 15 are actually at risk of female genital mutilation, FGM, and that 66,000 women in the UK are living with the consequences of FGM. However, the true extent is unknown due to the hidden natures of the crime. So that's why we've got Justine in, and Justine's from the Women Speak Out project. Thank you so much for coming on, Justine.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I know that this is a really sensitive subject and it is a hidden subject, but the thing is, there are things in place now so that people that perhaps are at risk or have been put at risk can actually go somewhere. And I think that's something about your organisation. So let's start off with, what organisation is it that you work with?
So I work for the Women's Centre based in Kirklees, but we're also across with Kirklees and Calderdale.
Right.
And the specific project I work for is the Women Speak Out project, which is about giving women a voice around female genital mutilation and giving them that opportunity to be able to speak openly about their experiences, but providing them with support and information and helping them create digital stories as a way of another form of expression.
Right.
For their stories.
Okay.
We also try to raise awareness where we can and give information to other professionals.
Okay, so I mean, obviously it's a very sensitive subject, as we've said. What does it actually involve? I mean, does it involve the person going to a hospital? How are these practices carried out?
It's carried out very differently in different countries, but
Right.
often it is a person being taken to a cutter. Generally no anaesthetic is used, and it could be a sharp implement, glass or a blade that is used.
Now, just even the thought of that, it doesn't bear thinking about. I mean, to use such implements to start with, but to not have the anaesthetic, obviously that's going to cause an awful lot of pain and distress and probably an awful lot of bleeding.
Yes, typically there's a lot of bleeding. If, for instance, the cutter may slip, it could cause other trauma and further bleeding, which is often very serious, but the same instrument could be used on a number of women, which could lead to infection. So there are a lot of short-term implications which are very, very serious.
So what about the long-term implications? Because obviously we've just touched on the blood loss and the fact of risk of infections and, you know, cross-contamination, but what are the long-term conditions?
So we could be looking at infections with urinary tract infections, kidney infections, pelvic infections. We could be looking at a woman who's possibly infertile or difficulties during pregnancy, difficulties in childbirth.
Yeah.
But also the psychological impact, which is often the hidden long-term effects, the stress. The shock from the initial trauma of a woman being cut can stay with her the rest of her life and impact the relationships that she has.
Right.
But that can cause a lot of stigma for that individual woman and a fear to speak out about it.
Right. Have you heard of this then?
I have. I just wondered why it occurred. Justine, please.
A lot of it is cultural reasons. A lot of it is about keeping a woman clean, pure and chastised, but also reducing her pleasure so that she doesn't wander and become promiscuous.
Right.
A lot is said that it is religious beliefs, but there is no religious founding that has
No.
been found for female genital mutilation.
Does it happen in certain ethnic backgrounds, certain communities?
It happens within certain cultures, and it is prevalent particularly in some of the African cultures such as Eritrea, Ethiopia.
Right.
And the more figures are known from there, but it is a very hidden process where obviously some of the figures aren't known for other cultures and other parts of the world.
Now, the facts and the figures that I gave at the start of the interview obviously didn't actually pinpoint about this area. Does it happen in Kirklees?
It could potentially happen in Kirklees.
Right.
We do know that there are certain hotspots within the UK where female genital mutilation is more prevalent. The closest to us would be Manchester, Sheffield. Others further away such as Birmingham and London. The figures aren't really known for the Kirklees area, and I think that is very much as it's a hidden problem really.
So what age does this happen?
Age is very difficult to say. It could happen any time from birth, typically up to the age of 15, but women have been known during pregnancy to go through female genital mutilation.
So it doesn't always happen before puberty then, before the woman starts the periods?
No.
Right. It's one of those subjects that I think people need to know about.
Definitely.
But people don't want to talk about, and a lot of people don't want to face it, or perhaps they're a bit unsure. I mean, how come, what is your role? How come you're doing this? What do you actually do to help these people if that's what you do?
So my role within the project is to work with survivors of female genital mutilation.
Right.
To give them support and give them an outlet to have their voice heard, a voice which is often not heard. As obviously it's a secret, they wouldn't talk about it with their friends or family. And this is an outlet for them to speak and have that power to be able to speak about it. But we do it through digital stories, so we do it in a way that doesn't necessarily mean that woman standing up and speaking, but do it through pictures and words and music as a different outlet.
So the women that you've worked with, do you notice that this actually helps them?
For some of the women, they have said that this has been an opportunity for them to have their voice, which for me is extremely powerful.
Yeah, because there may be some people watching this that have heard of it, are in fear of it, perhaps have had it, and they don't know where to go, they don't know what to do, they don't know who to turn to. Knowing that there's somebody out there that's able to help them is one thing. Knowing where to contact them. Are they at risk of contacting you? Would something be said? Do they have to take advice before they come and see you?
If somebody was at risk of female genital mutilation, social services and the police are the first port of call for information to stop that woman, girl undergoing or potentially investigating the crime.
Right.
If a woman did approach our service and say that they were at risk, we would have to follow that safeguarding process.
Yes, of course you would.
If a woman has undergone female genital mutilation already, then they can come to our service and we can provide them with whatever support we can for that woman.
Now, obviously, under safeguarding, you have a duty of care to pass the information on to make sure that they're safe and anyone else is kept safe. But is the rest confidential? As in, are you going to announce it to people that so-and-so has been to your service?
It is completely confidential within our service.
Brilliant.
The only time we would release any information was in that safeguarding concern, and we would seek the woman's permission to do that.
And how long does the support offer? I'm just thinking, if somebody decides that they're at the stage where they need help and they want to come and see you, how long can they expect the support to be there?
So Our service offers different programmes,
Yeah.
different avenues which the woman can explore. So the project I work with specifically, the Women Speak Out,
Yeah.
is just a small little project for women who are ready to have their voice heard.
Right.
But there are other projects within the organisation where women can get support,
We do
which
masses,
can
don't
be, we do definitely, where they can get a lot more long-term support, but holistically as well. We offer things such as massage as another outlet
Yeah.
of support for women.
And
You do confidence courses, don't you?
Yes, we
and
do.
assertiveness and things like that, don't you? Which are really good skills and abilities for women to be able to use, and strategies for them to use in the future.
Yes, definitely. They're one of the courses which, if a woman felt confident to be able to go to and potentially begin to gain that confidence, then we would recommend. But we leave it to the woman to obviously choose
Yes.
which avenue she would like to go down.
And so you say there's somewhere in Huddersfield.
There is, yes. The Women's Centre is based on Lord Street.
Right.
And we'd recommend that anyone who wants to get in touch with our service to give us a ring or to go on our website for more information.
Brilliant.
And whoever they speak to on the phone can direct them
Yeah.
to which is the best avenue to enter in our service.
And are they able to just turn up?
We do offer drop-ins, but we do really recommend women to ring up first to find out the drop-in times
Yeah.
for the drop-in that's appropriate to them, or to book an assessment.
And you say it's the Women's Centre, so are men allowed to go? Do men work there?
It is a completely women-only service.
Right.
So no men will be there, and we don't allow men within the organisation.
So they're going into an environment where you hope that they despite the subject of why they're going in, that they're going in where it's very supportive and people want to help them.
I think that's the main thing for me about the service. It's very supportive. You know, we're there to listen and provide support and signpost people to organisations if we maybe don't have all the expertise.
Yeah.
For instance, we're not legally equipped, so we could signpost on to legal services, for instance.
But you'd support them with that?
Of course we would, yes.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. If somebody was watching this now, what advice would you give them?
If they thought that someone was at risk
Yeah.
of female genital mutilation, please go to the police or social services, and they will be able to deal with that concern that you have, and will be able to investigate that.
Right.
But by all means, contact our service
Yes.
and see what we have to offer, and see if it is right for
And
yourself.
is it about just ringing the general social services number, Justine? Or is there a particular number that people should ring?
The duty social services.
The duty social services.
Which can be contacted through Gateway to Care.
Right.
Now
and
there
they're-
seems to be, sorry Bridget, there seems to be a lot of telephone numbers. So on your website,
Yes.
what's your website address, sorry?
It's www.womencentre.org.uk.
Okay, so on there will be contact details.
Yes, there will be.
And also on our website there will be contact details if anybody knows of anybody that's at risk of harm or is in harm's way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think it's a really important subject. I think you'll agree with that, Bridget. And I think hopefully the way that you've spoken about it, it will give people confidence to actually look and hopefully use the service that's provided. So thank you very much. Thank you both of you. So now it's time for some local news from our area. In the Huddersfield Examiner on the 4th of November, parish councils could have thousands of pounds of support stripped away. Kirklees Council is considering scrapping subsidies that allow parish councils free rent and free utility bills. The move could save Kirklees taxpayers £100,000, but residents living in Kirklees' 5 parish council areas may be hit with higher precepts to make up for the loss of income. There are 5 parish or town councils in Kirklees: Meltham, Home Valley, Denbydale, Kirkburton and Murfield. Cash-strapped Kirklees has now said it will seek to recharge parish councils for their rent and bills on council-owned properties. Councillor Graham Turner, Cabinet Member for Resources, said, "We acknowledge the parish and town councils play an important part in the local democratic process and are continually working on ways to make sure that we look at ways to work together for the people of Kirklees." But senior Tory and Mirfield councillor Martin Bolt has hit back, and he's hit back by saying the council would not need to punish town and parish councils if it managed its business properly. If the proposals to recharge the town and parish councils are agreed by Cabinet members, they will come into force from the 1st of April 2016. Join us after the break when we will be talking about library volunteers. Please remember that the weekly wind-up can be contacted by email at info@kirkleeslocaltv.com or on Twitter @theweeklywindup and also on Facebook.
However large or small your business, attracting new customers requires dedication and a lot of patience. Just like fishing, but you also need the right gear. Rods,
reels, lines, hooks, sinkers, lures,
tackle box, tackle bag, net, bait, gas gloves, clothes, and pocket knife roach.
or you could simply advertise with KLTV. Online, grow your business and your clientele. KLTV, your vision made reality. Should have gone to KLTV.
Welcome back to this week's show with me, Helen Ashcroft. Before we get on to our second topic, we have some more news from Kirklees, and this was in the Huddersfield Examiner on the 3rd of November. Former coal miners are to be remembered in a special tribute. The National Coal Mining Museum for England, which is situated in Grangemoor, is set to open the Miners' Memorial Garden on November the 15th. Now, this garden, featuring a specially commissioned sculpture, will celebrate and also commemorate the lives of those who were part of the industry, including the close-knit families and communities who supported the miners. Huddersfield had a thriving coal industry for many decades, and local pits included Emley Moor, Park Mill and Shuttle Eye, as well as Cap House, where the museum is now sited. Museum officials are inviting mining communities and local residents to join them in the opening of the garden and to become part of the artwork, Lives Lived, Lives Lost, which will hold personal coal mining memories in the form of symbolic glass cheques held within the steel art installation. House builders Keep Motorhomes Yorkshire have sponsored this event. The Memorial Garden has been built with an open grassed area at the museum's Hope Pit, located on the site of Cap House Colliery. The garden has been designed as a place for quiet contemplation and reflection, which allows visitors to share their memories of what coal mining has meant to the individuals, to the families, and also the local area over many generations. So let's hear from the people of Huddersfield about what they think about this memorial garden.
I think that it's a good idea. It's awareness for those people, and out of respect, it's nice.
I stood up for miners' strikes years ago with Arthur Scargill, and the men that work down the mine should always be remembered. I think it's a lovely thing, and that's been done.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, lots of people died when mining was a big thing, so it's important for people to remember it and to have something there for people who may have lost family members.
Well, any sort of memorial to people who helped build our country is a good thing, surely.
Well, there's a lot of memorials about at the moment, and a lot of people do have lost their lives for lots of very good causes, and I think the National Coal Mining Museum would be a good place to put something like that, so I think that would be a good idea, yes.
So you can see there's a lot of positive comments, and I hope you'll be able to go and actually look at this memorial. Now, our second topic for this week is about library volunteers, and I'm so pleased to be joined by Bridget Crabtree, who I said earlier was an actual friend of mine. Well, is an actual friend of mine. Not was, is. Now, she's worked in Kirklees for many years, running Routeways to Success before moving to Netherhall Learning Campus to work with students and parents. Now, she still does adult learning, but she also has a new addition to her work role, as well as making cakes and clothes, I have to add, and buying shoes. But that is being a volunteer as part of the local library service. So before we speak to Bridget, we went out into Huddersfield to find out what the residents actually think about volunteers running the libraries in Kirklees.
I believe that there should be places there for people who want to volunteer to help run the library, but I should also think that there should be like a backup plan in case people can't do certain days, so that the library isn't being closed or not non-functional, so to speak. I don't know if it's essential that people should be running the library from goodwill, but should definitely be qualified people, or something from the council should be done. I mean, you can't expect people just to do it off their own backs.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, because I think it'll help us with CVs and everything, and plus it's people who want to do it, volunteers. I think it'd be a good idea.
I suppose it depends on what kind of thing you're meaning. If you're just meaning a parent bringing their children into the library, oh look at all these books, come on, let's get you interested in books, I suppose it doesn't matter as much. But if they're like behind the desk or doing something important, I can imagine that they'd need to have a bit more experience than just someone walking on the street.
I think libraries are very important places for a lot of people to go for a lot of information, people who don't know anything about anything, and volunteers are very helpful to sort of keep things running, but qualified staff, you can't really replace them. They're very experienced in what they do. They've had a lot of education in a lot of different areas, and I do think that they would be better people to have in place rather than volunteers, or alongside volunteers perhaps, rather than in place of, yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Very interesting indeed. So, a volunteer at a library. Are you able to say which library?
I am. I'm at Honley Library.
Fabulous. So, obviously, when you and I were growing up, and you as well, Justine, we didn't have volunteers in libraries. So, why now?
Well, the government aren't giving the local government enough money to be able to do everything that the local government wants to do.
Right.
One of which will be maintaining libraries.
Okay.
And Kirklees have made a very clear decision that they want to continue the work that libraries do,
Yeah.
to provide opportunities that the libraries offer,
Yeah.
but they also know that they haven't got the money to be able to pay the staff.
Right.
I have been to the local Honley Library and said to them, once there is the money there, I will not be around. I am only doing this as a stopgap because I would like the service to continue.
And I think that's very generous of you, very generous indeed. Are you actually from Kirklees?
I am from Kirklees, yes, and I know, for instance, our library in my particular area was up for closure because of this funding issue.
Which library is that?
Murfield.
And is that going to be run by volunteers?
At the moment we know it's safe, but I believe it will have some volunteer input.
Now, one of the comments that was actually made then was about people perhaps not having the understanding or being trained. So, did you see an advert? Was there a job description?
Oh yes, there's a job description for all the various roles that the libraries can offer.
So there's different roles within the library, it's not just about...
No, there's masses and masses of different job descriptions.
Right. Okay.
So I help out with children's activities and song and rhyme time in the libraries on a Friday afternoon.
Really?
I do, yeah.
How
so
fabulous.
there's all different sorts of things that you can do,
Okay.
and they try and tailor what the volunteers' interests and abilities are linked to the opportunities within the library.
Right,
So it's a very carefully thought through process.
Right.
And then you also are given huge amounts of training. Huge amounts of training.
Let's just come back to you actually volunteering in the first place. Did you see an advert?
No, I heard about it because I visit the library on a fairly regular basis.
Right.
Realised that, and also having read about it in newspapers,
Yeah.
that there were cuts coming to the area.
Right.
And I just thought, well, I've now got a little bit more time. I actually would quite like to get to know more people in Honley, because my work has taken me across Kirklees,
Yes.
but not necessarily in Honley.
Yeah.
And it's a different way for me to get to know people in Kirklees in Honley.
And it's the community spirit as well, isn't it?
Very much so. Giving something back,
Yeah.
providing an opportunity for a service that is extremely well used,
Yeah.
to be able to be continued.
Okay, so you went in, you'd heard about it, you volunteered. Did you have an application form to fill in?
Yes, I had an application form to fill in.
Okay.
I was interviewed as well. Yes.
Right.
So they will interview you to make sure that you're of the right sort of person that they want to, and have the ability to be able to help out.
Right.
And then also you have huge amounts of training. You do work shadowing to make sure that you are comfortable with the role that you will be volunteering within, as well as the opportunity to say at any point, actually, this might not be for me at the moment.
And that's all right to do that, isn't it? To say that it isn't,
yes,
it isn't right.
because it's about it being a process that is useful for both sides,
Yes.
both the library and the individual, as well as the
Okey-dokey.
community that the library serves.
And they say about shadowing, you mentioned that. So how long does this shadowing process take?
I think I work shadowed 2 afternoons,
Right.
but I attended about 5 days worth of training.
Okay.
But that's all in my time again, that the library have very kindly put on.
So do you get
course.
paid anything? Any expenses?
No.
Do you get
no.
a cup of tea?
I get a cup of water, you'll be pleased
you
to
do
know.
drink a lot
Yes,
of water,
yes,
so you get
yeah.
refreshments anyway.
Yes,
That's
yes,
fabulous.
Yeah, but it is a lovely opportunity to be part of a community activity.
Yes.
And I have learnt so many people in Honley that I can now say hello when I see them on the street, and I know it's lovely. It's a really good opportunity for anybody to consider. And we were talking earlier, weren't we, about the possibility of perhaps the library going to the university.
Yes.
Because I think we're missing a trick at the moment. We've looked at local Honley residents,
Yes.
perhaps volunteering for Honley, but there is something about perhaps students perhaps who are studying English or want to get a little bit more work experience or
Yes.
something like that. They could volunteer and gain and upskill and bring up
Yeah.
to date their CV, which will be very useful for their future as well as for the libraries.
I think that's brilliant. Now, I do know, as I've said, that I do know you personally anyway, but with your work as an adult ed teacher, that we both work with each other on that, we have been trained on safeguarding and we are
Yes.
DBS covered as well.
Yes.
Is that something that you've had to do again as part of this volunteering?
Yes, I had another safeguarding course to go on, and I'm now the proud owner of 4 CRBs. Because
Well
I had to
done.
have another one taken
Well, the
out for me.
DBSs now, aren't
DBS,
they?
yes.
DBSs.
Yes. But yes, I'm now the proud owner of 4 or 5.
Brilliant.
Yes.
I think the thing is, though, like it showed on the video, people are unsure about the volunteers and the backgrounds, but what you're saying to me is it's not just as straightforward as walking in and saying, where do I put my coat?
No. And also, if you look at the variety of people who come through the library doors, it can be anybody. They might want to use the computer to look up some information on Google.
Yeah.
They might want to write a complicated letter using the computer. It might be families coming in for song and rhyme time, because that's actually when you start to capture children to come into libraries and get that love of literacy and that love of language and the sort of the storytelling that means that they can do their reading and then have lots of stories to fall back on for when they're beginning to write and that sort of thing. So there's lots of people.
Bridget's doing this, and I actually didn't know she was doing this, but one of my roles when I worked for Kirklees Council was being the book start coordinator. And I used to go into libraries and part of my role was to run story and rhyme time sessions. So I'm looking at you and thinking, oh, that is amazing, because the amount of joy that you get get
Yes.
from working with children and seeing how they develop through
Yes,
their
and watching them
skills.
over the period of time, how they develop and how
that's
they come in arms, and then they walking out, it's say a year later, walking out saying bye bye, see you soon, and they can sing the songs as they're walking out.
And I bet that's incredibly rewarding for you to
Yes,
see that process.
yes, and to feel part of it as well. Yes.
So really, I mean, I can see that you're really, emotional over
Yes,
that
yes.
and positive.
Yeah.
If you weren't doing that, what would happen?
Well, in Honley, they're present that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
That there's a paper going to the cabinet to discuss how library staff are going to be cut and how cuts are going to be made. They're going to be making a decision about what happens to libraries. In Honley, there's a Friends of Libraries. A Friends of Honley Library group, and they've taken on the mantle to develop and to lead on the volunteering in Honley. In Golka, there's another group. There must be one developing in Murfield. But every library will have, hopefully, I would want a paid up member of staff in the library.
Yeah.
Because I think there are skills and techniques that they've trained for years
Yes.
to do.
Yes.
And they know the systems, they know the processes, they know what's required. So I think it's important that it is volunteers supporting library staff.
Yes. So there's a balance.
Yes, there's a balance
there.
And as I've said earlier, once there's money back and they can recruit and they will lose volumes of library staff. So all those skills and all the qualities and the experience that it's got there, I'm afraid will be lost to the area.
And I think what you're saying as well is, if these cuts are so severe and potentially they stop volunteers actually working in the libraries, these songs and rhymes times that support and encourage children's early literacy skills, they're going to be lost.
Well, yes, and also sort of the use of the not every home is able to have a computer.
Yeah.
So that people coming in and using the computer and that side of things, as well as the very traditional, the well-known borrowing books and taking them away and then bringing them back.
So the opening hours, are the opening hours the same, or?
No, each library has very different opening hours, and that
Right.
is dependent upon, I would imagine, statistics as to when they are required to be opened. So we have at Honley we have a rota of we cover on a Monday, we support on a Monday afternoon, a Tuesday afternoon, and a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
And that is looking to be developed to have a few more times when that can take place.
So do you think it's worthwhile for volunteers to
I think
come
it's very
forward?
worthwhile. I think volunteers need to think through what it is they feel that they can take to the library and how they can support the service. It's entering into an era that perhaps is very uncomfortable because we've got cuts taking place all over the place. But if you look at library opening versus adult social care, which way does the money go?
Yes, I can see that. So really, if we don't have the volunteers,
Libraries could shut. In Wakefield, they've got a model of libraries being run completely by volunteers. Personally, I'm not in favour of that model.
No, because as you said, the librarians that have actually been to university and got the qualifications and have got years of experience need to be there to support.
That's right. And we have a superb librarian at Honley called Louise, and she is very welcoming, unfailingly thanks me each time I go in to help her.
So thank you, Louise.
That's nice, yes.
So, if somebody decided they wanted to be a volunteer for the libraries, how would they become that?
I would ask their customer services officer in their library, and they should know information about what to do.
Brilliant.
And put their name down, and then that will be followed up.
So you've no regrets about becoming a volunteer?
No, not at all. Not at all. I've volunteered in lots of other things, but this is the latest one. Yes.
Brilliant. Brilliant. It's a really interesting subject. All my subjects are interested. I just love finding out things and having a chat
lots
with
of
people.
difference, yes.
Yeah. But libraries, as I said, because of the role that I've had in the past, are really special to me. So I'm grateful for people like yourself.
We get people popping in wanting directions round Honley. Which is quite nice,
that's
which is
good.
almost like the traditional view of a library, at the front of
Yes.
lots of knowledge.
Yeah.
So we get people coming in and asking us, they want to know different information, where the latest Pilates class is. I was able to help with that.
Good.
And all sorts of things we get asked. Yes.
Oh, that's brilliant, like a community hub.
Yes, yes.
Well, thank you ever so much. I've really enjoyed chatting to both of you. And I
Thank
don't
you.
follow the autocue at all, do I? I mean, anybody that's watching this, we genuinely just have a really nice chat and find out more about the
Yes,
subjects,
yeah,
don't we? But thank you. So, finally, and as always on my show, we have a feel-good story. So this was in the Huddersfield Examiner on the 2nd of November. And it's coming. It's actually coming, and everybody knows that when the Coca-Cola truck appears, it's Christmas. Well, it's actually coming to Huddersfield and Leeds this time. It's bringing some festive spirit and the Coca-Cola Christmas bottles. For some people, it's not Christmas until they've seen the festive Coca-Cola advert on TV. I must admit, personally, I get all excited. It's like, it's Christmas. And fans can once more see the truck for real in Leeds and Huddersfield this December. So it's bringing its famous red lorry to West Yorkshire to spread some festive cheer and to give out free bottles of Coke, as well as the chance to pose for a selfie, which everybody wants to do, with the famous truck. The Coca-Cola truck is coming to St George's Square, Huddersfield on Wednesday the 9th of December, midday until 8 p.m. And then it's going to Victoria Gardens in Hedgerow and the Hedgerow in Leeds on Thursday, December the 10th, from noon until 8 p.m. So that's it from this week's Weekly Wind-Up. Now next week, Dave Hodgson moves from behind the cameras to the seat here as I take a break, and he'll be with you for the rest of the month and talking about, well, lots of different subjects, but the November ones coming up to a scrutiny, well, forget November because it's Movember. And there's an also in-depth look at herbal medicine. Now I want to thank you both for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
That's all right, as long as you've enjoyed it.
We have.
And as long as you've learnt lots.
We have.
Definitely.
Yes.
That's brilliant. Please remember, the Weekly Wind-Up can be contacted by email at info@kirkleeslocaltv.com or on Twitter @theweeklywind-up, and we can also be found on Facebook. Thank you ever so much for watching. Goodbye.